Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of 8 Ounces of Inspiration. I have with me Sheenu Jhawar, who is the first woman president of TiE Rajasthan. And we are really honored to have her here with us. She is the director on the board of Apex Hospitals, one of the most popular hospitals in Jaipur, and they also have 5 super specialty hospitals across Rajasthan. She is the founder of India's first clinical governance consulting firm named ACE Vision. She is a PhD in mental health, and one of her pursuits is to create awareness on depression and how to manage that. She's been associated with TiE for over a decade and is contributing greatly towards enhancing the startup ecosystem in Rajasthan. So, without much ado, I'm going to just welcome Sheenu. Thank you for your time
Thank
and
you very
being with
much.
us. I have so
Thank you
many
very much.
questions for you, because I've been a very big admirer of your work, of how you've always conducted yourself, how you've been a part of the ecosystem of entrepreneurship, because I'm also a very big advocate for women entrepreneurship, and how you're taking that torch forward. So, my first question to you, because I was reading a lot about your profession and your work, your family managed business. My first one is, are you the only female director on the board?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. I really was very curious to ask that. So my next question comes from that. Does it pose a challenge to see, because you see things maybe with a different perspective that the men on the board are unable to? And is it sometimes hard to make your voice heard because there are too many male voices around? Or is it an
No,
advantage?
in fact, so whenever this question is posed, I'm honestly unable to agree because I think we are living in the times of gender fluidity. This concept is only come to the fore now, but in terms of understanding this, even as a nomenclature, as a coined term. But to be very honest, none of us are completely, uh, looking at things from a uh, female perspective, that is the stereotypical female
Mhm.
perspective or the male perspective. I think we all bring our character and our personalities on the board or in the work and the things that we do. In fact, my focus is very much on the bottom line, and sometimes it's difficult to convince the other people on the board who are also doctors to see it purely from a bottom line perspective
Yeah.
than to see it also from a humanitarian perspective. So when we go with the stereotypical views, this would seem a little odd, but I think it is just about how we are as people.
Yeah.
So a little less to do with whether we are females or
Yeah,
males.
maybe.
So
But does it sometimes feel like you feel people hold themselves back because there's woman in the boardroom, or do you feel that there is a certain level of empathy that is brought in because you of your presence?
no, not really, not really.
Okay,
I think once you're there, you're just focused on the task at hand. And
fantastic. That's how it
but
should
what is
be.
important?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry. So what is important is that people bring in different capabilities on the board because that is how you look at things from different angles. And
sure.
like I said, that people could, males could be far more empathetic
Yeah,
than females. Again, it's just the kind of people that we are and what we bring to the workplaces, irrespective of our gender.
nice.
It's a
Yeah.
very gender.
So now moving to something about Thai, right? That now that you're in the forefront of leadership and decision making, and you're the president of Thai for the next 2 years. Would women entrepreneurship development be a higher, I would say, a higher purpose on your agenda to be able to close that gap? Because I do see it that in the space of entrepreneurship, there's a huge gender gap, and you see a lot, very much fewer women entrepreneurs as compared to the men who you see over there. So is this something that you would be working highly on development of women entrepreneurship?
So you're absolutely right, especially in places like Rajasthan, you see a wide gap between the women who want to be in business and have their own startups as compared to the men, even if the men are coming from the college and women are coming more from a mid-career, mid-age, a
Hmm.
sort of background. Uh, the whole idea is that there are different stages of entrepreneurship and startup. So one is the incubation stage,
Yeah.
where you have an idea and you want some to work with somebody, handhold you with the idea, and you also want to take the leap of faith because that is the most difficult step. You have an idea, but how do you actually bring it on the ground? At the same time, there are startups who've been there, done that, and they are in the accelerator mode, where they
Mm.
want to explore different markets to take their a certain amount of traction beyond that market to a bigger market and accelerate their
Yeah.
growth. So the way I see things is I'm very keen on building the incubation alliances for women because that is the kind of support you need to give.
Yeah.
Because then you are attracting a certain layer of women who have not yet built a startup but have some sort of an idea and they need to wait it out. I
Yeah.
think that support is required. But for the others, like for the university going students, etc., whether it's males or females, we have the accelerator mode in
Yes.
which we our students and we make the jury listen to their pitches and have them pitch
Mhm.
against the VCs, the angel funds, etc., depending upon the growth at which they stand with their startup.
In fact, I think TiE Rajasthan is very, very active in this ecosystem. I mean, that's what my, from all that I read and all that I'm subscribed to, and people that I know from different chapters of Rajasthan, different chapters in India and overseas, we are really, really active, and it's great,
Yeah,
and you do see a lot of women entrepreneurs, but I still feel like that gap is huge. A lot
it
of
is.
people don't want to take the risk, or they don't know how to start, where to start, what to do. So that kind of inhibits their entry into this space. My next question to you is, which is a very interesting one, because you started pursuing your PhD somewhere along in like your mid 40s, right? And you completed it just this year. So a lot of times I've heard people, especially women, and in Rajasthan, because I've lived in so many places in the world, where they feel like 40 is the time, like, up to life, mein kya karna hai? Matlab, studies or education is the last thing they would go to. They may still think of starting a business, but not education. And I've loved that when I first heard from you that, I did my PhD, and it kind of inspired me too. So when I was doing this career shift from my third venture to now, in between, I thought maybe I would pursue a PhD in entrepreneurship. So my question to you,
Wow.
what motivated you, and was it hard to get back to like studies or research, education?
So this is very interesting, Nidhi, and I would say if I were to describe myself, it would be with two words. I think I am both a student and a teacher at heart. I think that's who I am, which is why I love to study. I would love to go back to school, even perhaps after my TiE stint. I have some courses in mind. I keep on going to the management institutes within India, outside India. I keep doing courses on Coursera because that whole curiosity just keeps bubbling inside of me, and this goes beyond healthcare and beyond the kind of stuff that I'm doing to learn more. Because unless you learn what is out there, you do not know if it's going to be applicable in your work as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just looking at just a tubular vision of what you need to know. And you're doing only incremental additions to your work. But if you actually go out there, learn about different stuff, it will just open up your mind. So I think that is where the whole student thing comes in. And I know I'm deviating, but where the whole teacher thing comes in is my passion with startups. So it's just amazing. But anyway, coming back to your
Mm.
question, so what got me started on this was that I always felt that doing a PhD is sort of the culmination of your academic journey. To me, that was always very
Mm.
important. And in fact, even before I got married, I'd done my master's, and my passion was to, it was taking me towards a research in cancer at that time. And everything was final, but then, destiny had a different. My guide was final, and we were working on the topics, etc. But destiny just took its course. So when the option of doing a part-time PhD from one of the best institutes in Jaipur came up, I was very, very keen to explore it. And everything else just fell into place. In fact, I think doing the research, it was not difficult. And yet at the same time, when you're doing research, you have to be very particular with the kind of words that you use. The clarity has to be very much there because you can't mix between the two different things. So I think uh, that whole journey was a journey of learning beyond the subject of PhD that I was doing, which is very
Yeah.
interesting. So I just got absorbed into it. Of course, At that time, sometimes you think, my God, who asked me? Why
Yeah.
didn't somebody stop? But when you get the ticket, when that happens, it's all great.
Amazing. In fact, I must meet your husband to get his opinion on what was it like to have you get busy again. It's like the child leaves the nest and you suddenly feel, okay, now we're going to have more time. And then your spouse takes up something which takes so much of commitment, right? Again. And you say, oh God, now it's another 6 years, that I have
Yeah.
to push it. So I'm sure he's a very, he probably has this admiration for you for your quest for learning, which is remarkable because when I was reading your LinkedIn profile, that's one thing I thought to myself that my God, she's continuously doing courses, whether it's I'm Ahmedabad, whether it's a Coursera, and like you said, very diverse. So it doesn't have to be in a
Yes,
particular line that you're
yes,
pursuing.
yes.
And that brings me to my next question that how important do you think and you feel like, especially a lot of our listeners are women, how important it is for them to continue this path of learning for their personal and career development? It should come
I
from you.
think it's important. I think it's extremely important. And it's also a treat for yourself. It's something that you're doing for yourselves. So of course, if you have younger children, if you're a primary caretaker in your family, it becomes difficult. But now I think you have a lot of online material as well.
Yeah.
This is something that for myself, of course, I would advise. If anybody asks me this question, I would advise that take time out for yourself at least once a year, learn
Yeah,
something new. It's a great thing you're doing for yourself, for your mind,
absolutely. Yeah.
thought
And
process.
especially even if it's not completely aligned to your career path. I think sometimes learning different things is so therapeutic. It opens our minds in
Yeah.
ways that we can't even imagine that we could have thought that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, my next question is that you did your PhD in mental health, right? And that's a subject right now which has gained so much light, and there's so much talk about it because we are seeing more and more kids, especially after COVID, as well as adults, but I'm talking a lot of students who fell into this state of depression, And in India, sometimes even accepting, recognizing that there is a path where the child is, going through depression is something parents want to run away from because they feel there's nothing wrong with my child. It's something abnormal if I'm saying that, oh, my child needs a counselor or help, right? Because they still think of
Yeah.
mental health as a taboo. It's not like that. It's like a physical ailment that you take medication, you get the right, help, and you will be fine, right? It's something you have to tide over. So I want to ask you, since you've gone so deep dive into the subject, what are some of the preliminary signs that parents should get alarmed by what they see in their children, right? Which tells them that this could be a start of depression and where they need to seek help outside. And what are the things they can do as a family to be supportive during that period?
Right. So incidentally, my research is focused on depression in pregnant women.
Okay.
So again, so when you do your research, you have to really do a very
Specialized.
tight
Okay.
into a very specialized subject. I'll go a little back and I'll tell you how this all started. So I was working in the NHS and I was working as a clinical auditor there.
Mm.
And I came across one of the things that I had to audit was clinical treatment given in this particular subject. So it was quite a cultural shock to me because I thought being pregnant was a big moment of joy.
Yeah.
We come from India and that's what we see, that's what we hear, and that's what shapes our ideology about life and the way we look at life. So when I came across this, I was pretty shocked and I doubted that such a thing could actually even be existent. And I'm talking, this is, I think, 2002, so way, way back.
Okay.
So I spoke to a few doctors here and they said, no, no, nothing like this exists. It's just, some hoopla and it's not true. But that thing sort of stayed with me. Obviously, I carried on with my work. I did what I had to out there. But I did start reading up a little bit on it because, it piqued my interest. And then I realized that this was actually true. And a lot of studies have been done on postpartum depression. And that's the term you'll probably hear more, which
Mm-hmm.
is depression after delivery
The childbirth.
as
Yeah.
compared to depression during delivery. Because a lot of symptoms of being pregnant and being depressed while you're pregnant are similar.
Hmm.
It's very difficult to catch
Okay.
them. So when this opportunity of doing the PhD came up, this idea came back into my mind. Also, it was a little bit of a strategic decision also, because this was in 44 when I was 44, right?
Hmm.
So when I was planning to pick this up, and a couple of people asked me, so why this subject? And I said that the way, because when you read stuff, you know that what kind of diseases are going to become the top three
Hmm.
global burden of diseases for the world. And mental health was actually catching up. And I
Yeah.
said, if this is something that I pick up 5 years, 7 years down the line, it's going to become far more relevant, because this is something which is going to happen more and more, because
Yeah.
that's how the studies and the extrapolation data, that's what they tell us. So, well, that part was true, unfortunately. And then COVID brought everything to the fore. People
Yeah.
became more aware. So, the important thing is for people to understand that just the brain is an organ, just like the rest of the organs in the body. And depression cannot be one end of this entire range of problems that we go through. It's not,
Hmm.
there's no threshold which says that, you're depressed and you're not depressed. Also, it can stay within you, which is called the Proderm period, for 10, 20 odd years when it's not detected. And then it is detected because of a trigger.
Wow.
The only thing that parents or people can do is that they should not be considering this as a stigma, which is very difficult.
Hmm.
And that's why the work of, let's say, policymakers or people who work on this and who want to talk about this, such as this podcast, which is going to happen, it should let people know that this is something it's not good, because no disease is good, no health problem is good, but this is not abnormal.
Hmm.
And seeking a doctor's help at the right time is extremely important. When is that right time is very difficult to figure out. But then again, it's the whole issue with the policymakers, because you have uh, every year checkups for your dental health. So why don't we have yearly checkups for our
Yeah.
mental health as well? Isn't that very important? But no insurance company is going to put that in their papers
Yeah.
because of the whole stigma. I think the moment the government sets up some sort of an agenda for this, things will hopefully change. Because if you're talking about it so much, and if
Yeah.
as a matter of fact you have to get this done, it's the same thing that we do for
Yeah.
cardiac as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So difficult to figure out, and you will hear of deaths happening on the treadmill, silent
Yeah.
heart attack, right? And then you wonder, why didn't we catch it? That's because perhaps the regular checks which should have happened after a certain age did not happen. And
Yeah.
it's the same with your mental health as well.
Yeah, you're right. I think, in fact, in the US, they have counselors, right? And if there's even one sign of depression, the child is going,
Yes,
speaking, and then they're put into therapy or whatever it is that intervention needs to be
yes,
taken, parents are called. I think if, like you were saying, if that becomes a part of our policy and we start even from the school level, it can actually become that'll lead to awareness as these children grow up,
yes,
the youth, and things
yes,
will
absolutely.
really change and become more acceptable. So now that we're talking about women, right, I feel, and of course, that especially for me, the need for women, right, girlfriends, the anchors in my life, whether mom, they bring us a very different kind of, like, say, state of happiness and joy in my life, when I'm surrounded by my I would say, like, my women, anchors or angels, right? And I feel that maybe they fill up our cup, emotional cup, in a different way, and it's something that we need. So, and since you're a doctorate in mental health, you've done work with women, of course. I'm talking about just women in general, not pregnant one. What would you advise women to do to avoid falling into depression?
So a lot of the causes for depression, uh, again, I'll have to come back a little to the pregnant women, because that's
Of
the
course, yeah, yeah.
very clear cut. Is the insult which they sometimes face.
Okay.
So I think the most important thing is, I think self-worth is very, very important.
Mm,
Whether it is a parent and how they're treating their children in making them believe in themselves, have the confidence with the way they are, the body shaming part. There's so many things. We're all different. Our fingerprints are all different. We're just different kinds of people. And it's very important to understand that we are all very important in our own lives. That self-worth, confidence is extremely important. Sometimes childhood trauma may lead to things which you do not realize, in spite of the confidence that you have, because they are the underlying factors. But
Yeah,
what is it that we can do for ourselves, the people around us, our friends, the people who work with us, and our children? That's the
yeah,
least that we can do to stay happy
yeah,
and to, yeah, not fall prey to
yeah.
external factors.
And it's very I mean, interesting that because I'm in the space of entrepreneurship development and coaching, a lot of women who've never worked, right, who've been homemakers, now the kids are leaving when they're in their mid 40s or sometimes even early 40s, kids are leaving for college. Suddenly they find themselves alone. There's no
Yeah,
purpose. The center of your life around whom you like basically played your life, their school, their coaching, and their food. Are they happy or not? And suddenly, and they, because they're also venturing out into a new territory and exploring themselves, for some time, they may not need you as much as you think that you want them to need you, right? And that
100%. Yeah.
space and vacuum, I think, that lack of purpose causes a lot of them to go into like this loneliness. And then I don't know if that then slips more into depression.
It could be. You're absolutely right. It could be. The most important thing is that you have to have a personal release.
Yeah,
So so the question that we often ask ourselves is, whom are we living for?
yeah,
But if you ask a child of today, the answer that he's going to give is, you're living for yourself. But that answer completely evades
yeah,
our sight because that's how we've grown up.
yeah,
So
true.
I think that it's not being selfish, but if you're happy within, you radiate happiness all around you.
Yeah,
It's extremely important
yeah.
to
I
have that little
agree.
one corner in your mind and in your life for yourself, no matter what.
Yeah,
And it's not being selfish. It's an
absolutely.
investment. It's an investment
Yeah.
into your family, your happiness, and of those around you.
Yeah, I think having a purpose in life is so important. So
True
important
that.
at every point. So now coming to something more personal. So your father is a medical entrepreneur. Your parents were both doctors. How come
Yes.
you never thought of becoming a doctor or pursue that?
Oh no, I'm not going to lie to you. I think it was a natural course that I had to take. So I had to take
Okay.
sciences.
Okay.
I used to love geography and English literature, by the way. I used to write even when I was in school. And this is very interesting. So when I wrote an article for my school magazine, they refused to take it because they said, you've not written it. I said, this is the best validation I can get, but they refused to print my articles. Anyway,
Mm,
so it was a natural progression that my parents were doctors and I would also, but I did not get through for a very long time. It was very heart wrenching for
mm,
me. But I think that everything just fell into place.
as a
Perhaps I was
plan.
meant more for what I'm doing now
Yeah.
than where I would have been maybe
So
as a
if
doctor.
you hadn't, say, been married into kind of the work that you've taken up, right? Like because
Yeah.
we have this chain of hospitals and then you adapted beautifully and gainfully, got yourself the credentials that you needed to take this forward, and get yourself to that level that I am worthy of this position. And it's not just because I've been handed it out. I just want to ask you that would you have chosen a different career if this had not come into your life? Would you have been a
So
writer?
yeah, perhaps, but I had already picked up, I wanted to do my PhD in cancer
Yes.
research.
Yeah,
So
you
I'd
mentioned it.
already picked up a very scientific sort of a vertical. But I
Right.
think I would also have been a writer. I mean,
Yeah.
I think so.
Now in our conversation, I feel you probably would have done your PhD, your master's, continued that and then become a teacher, a professor. Because that's a lot of you are a teacher. I mean, you love to coach and you love studying, you love research, and then you're good at writing, writing papers, writing. I think I'm just thinking, that
No,
probably
so
that could
you're
have
right.
happened.
You're right. I sat for these state lectureship exams and I cleared them. I cleared the
Wow.
interview, and this was all before my marriage. So I think I would have probably gone that route. You're
Yeah.
right.
Awesome. So now I have to ask this. I ask this to you every time I meet, so but I want to keep it like open for everyone who's listening now. What's the secret of your youthful skin?
A lot of laughter like that and meeting amazing people is yourself to chat with.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's more to it. Is it like your green tea? Is it like your just being happy
Oh
and
no,
meditation?
it's
What is
it's
it?
my black coffee. It's my
Okay.
black coffee. It's a bit of wine and it's a lot of cheese.
Oh, nice. Awesome. So now coming to some really personal rapid fire questions to get to know a different side of you. I'm just going to ask and you answer
Right.
from the top of your mind. What's your favorite color?
Black.
Nice. What's your favorite book that you could reread again?
Yuval Noah Harari, Homo sapiens.
Okay, awesome. What's your favorite city to visit?
My favorite, sorry,
City to visit.
city to visit. I love all of Spain. So I wouldn't say
Spain.
one particular city,
Okay,
but just love it.
so country Spain. All right. One word that you find yourself using a lot in your conversations.
Very difficult for me. Maybe. Did you get that?
Okay, did you get that? Uh,
I
a
don't know.
quotation that you usually have, we see one right behind you, but still asking, for the sake of it, that a quotation that you really like to watch or you find yourself quoting a lot because you believe in
Uh,
it too much.
something something that I live by. It'll sound like a cliche, but where there is a will, there is a way. I absolutely, strongly, completely believe in that because I've lived that.
Absolutely. You've lived that. I think no better than anybody else. You've truly lived that. One habit or quality, or you can say ability, that you want to, that you feel you don't have, but would love to inculcate in your life.
A little more patience.
Wonderful. Well, with that, we come to the end of our conversation. But thank you so much for sharing so openly, so authentically, and for sharing such an important part of who you are, what you believe in, and what you are there to advocate. I think the subjects that you've picked up and the subjects that you're pursuing, whether it's mental health, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it is being a leader in the company and inspiring others to take up those leadership positions, right? As women, I think you probably don't even realize, but you inspire everyone by every conversation that you have with them. So thank you
Thank you so
so
much,
much.
really.
It's been an absolute pleasure, wonderful, and I hope a lot of lives will get transformed just listening to this conversation and this podcast. Thank you so much.
That's so wonderful. Thank you. Love being here.
Thank you and good luck with your tenure at TiE. And I hope we are going to cross our paths a lot more through this tenure of
Absolutely.
yours.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.